hot ones, but I think that's the chicken wing challenge.
Yes, is it?
It's John Bernthal's podcast, Real
Mhm.
Ones, that's it,
That's it. Yeah.
with Sarah Wayne Callies, and they spoke a lot about their time on The Walking Dead together. I really recommend listening to it. They both,
Mm.
it's a really interesting podcast, but they spoke specifically about the context of this episode with Darabont being fired and Glenn Mazzara coming onto the show, and themselves and Jeffrey DeMunn having spoken up in favor of Frank Darabont, saying don't fire
Mm-hmm.
him, but not having
Mm-hmm.
the rest of the crew behind them. And it's clear that Sarah Wayne Callies really thinks that's why all three of them got killed off. I think it might be why Jeffrey DeMunn got killed off, but I do think that Laurie and Shane were killed off because of story rather than support for Frank
Damon
Darabont.
left. He
Yeah,
quit.
DeMunn wanted out, didn't he? He
Yeah,
was like,
because of
I'm
that,
going.
because of Darabont.
Yeah.
Yeah, because he and Darabont were really tight, and he's in a bunch of Darabont movies. And I was on a panel with him. It was the same panel where Laurie Holden was complaining a lot about how she left the show and it got into
Mhm.
the news and everything. So I was like, oh, one of my panels in the news. That's cool. But
Oh, I
anyway,
remember that. I was like, oh, I
yeah.
know that guy. So it was
But
interesting to watch
he
it with
said
that
that he left
lens.
because of Darabont.
Interest, because I found it fascinating to watch through that lens of like, oh, there was a lot of stuff going on behind the scenes at this point. Yeah, and it's a goodbye to Dale, short and sweet. Our time with him
Swan
has been
song.
felt very
Yeah.
brief. How did you find it?
Yes. I think it's a great episode too. It's Dale's swan song, and that's kind of what I enjoyed. Is I I was so mad when I first watched this that everyone was for killing Randall except for Dale. And
Mm.
I didn't know how I was going to feel coming to it 12 years later. And I feel the same. I'm like, fuck you
Ah,
guys. And
yeah.
so it was really fun. It's an annoying episode because of that, and it's kind of leaves me feeling crappy, but I also enjoy it because I liked watching Dale do his thing, and it's just good drama, all the way around, like for every character. So I don't know. It's
So
good.
would you still have not killed Randall? Would you still have kept him prisoner or
Knowing what they know at this point, I would not kill Randall. Now, I think Randall says something next time that is a real, like, okay, you're actually a fucker.
yeah.
Then I might be more likely to go along with it. But at this point, I think everything that Randall has shown is that the jury is out on Randall.
Mhm.
And with the jury being out, I could not condone killing another human being like that. I would at least wait around a while and just see how things shook out, make sure he's secure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm kind of with you on that. I think as well. It makes the decision to keep Negan prisoner a bit more baffling looking back on this episode. I'm like, oh, well, if I was Randall, I'd be looking up or down and saying, hey, that guy gets to live.
Yeah. They brought saviors in to
Yeah,
their group.
yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, I think that is actually indicative of the moral arc of The Walking Dead. I think
Hmm.
it's actually good storytelling because it's a story. If it kind of Rick is the protagonist, and he's a man who was changed by this horrible thing that happened to the planet, and the planet was changed. And as they're talking about in this episode, are we? Dale's like, if we do this, we're not who we were anymore, and it's a different world. And they're like, yeah, that's right, Dale. We're not who we were. It is a different world. But I think by the end of The Walking Dead, they're like, no, we are who we were. We can't give up on love. That's what Michonne is saying.
Yeah.
She's talking about her loved ones, but it's also about compassion. I'm going to spoil one thing in The Ones Who Live. Rick and Michonne come upon a group of people. They offer these people food, and in turn, the people try to kill them and steal everything from them. And Rick and
Hmm.
Michonne allow them to live. And that's because Rick, at this point, he's gone to the dark side. And then, as I've talked about before, I think even during the rewatch, when Carl died and left him that letter that said every life is worth something, you got to bring the saviors in, let's keep the good things of the world that were from before. And so I think that's the story of The Walking Dead, how they came back to reclaiming their humanity. But here's where they're losing it. That's how I see it.
Imagine,
That's how I see it.
imagine how the show would have been if Carl's final letter had just said, "Do it, Dad."
Yeah, do it. Yeah, because
Do
it's interesting. Like
it.
in this episode, it's Carl who uh he's the reason why Rick reconsiders, but it's in reaction to Carl becoming cutthroat, right? But
Yeah,
later on, Carl's death and writing that beautiful letter is what all same thing turns Rick into a more compassionate person, but that's at the direct urging of Carl.
yeah,
But it's all about wanting to be a good father for Carl, even posthumously, I
yeah.
think.
It's a nice bookend, that, I think, to Carl's story. I did
Yeah,
think of that when Shane says, "Quit trying to get yourself killed." I'm like, oh, he does get himself killed.
I
Like a later
know.
date.
Yeah, tragic. Okay, let's get
hmm
into it. What is your first point?
Uh, so this is kind of a turning point for Daryl this episode. I'd sort of forgotten. I remembered I was uncomfortable coming into this one because I remembered that Daryl is essentially the torturer, and that makes
Mm-hmm.
me uncomfortable for a number of reasons. I do maintain we spoke about this on the Daryl Dixon show because there's a similar scene in the first season of Daryl Dixon. Daryl being a bit more into it in the scene that we see in Daryl Dixon, or a bit more powerful with it, and a bit more like he's telling a little story as he is doing the violence.
Yeah, like that makes this look like Child's Play, the Daryl
Yeah,
show. That's another
it really
spoiler,
does.
but fucking A.
Yeah, yeah, and it felt more naturalistic in that. So he gets a story out of Randall, and he's quite sickened, I think, by what Randall tells him. He is approached later by Dale about that. I've got a whole other point about Dale and democracy, but there's this scene between Dale and Daryl where Dale comes over and Daryl says the whole point of coming up here is to get away from you people. Did Carol send you? And we see a couple of things about Daryl. We see that he is super perceptive. Like he figured out on his own that Otis was killed. He's like, it wasn't hard to figure out. Shane came back
Yeah.
with another guy's gun. He told me a story. It wasn't very convincing.
He
And
said,
he's,
yeah, that he said this guy covered him, but he had his gun. So, and it's so
yeah,
funny that Daryl's just been sitting on that, like, yeah, I
yeah.
knew.
A part of Daryl's just like, I don't want any drama. I
And
don't care.
Dale's like,
You're all
oh,
crazy.
you're smarter
Dale's like,
than you
huh,
look.
all right, exactly. And this is, I think, this is where the shift in Daryl really starts to kind of come to the fore, because he says something really perceptive as well about Rick. He says if Rick didn't realize it, it's because he didn't want to. And he's kind of right.
Yeah.
There's a lot about Shane that Rick willfully will ignore or willfully won't look at in a critical
Yeah,
way
we all
because he
do.
views him as a brother. And yeah, and he
Yeah.
says to Dale that the group is broken. But the big moment, I think, that shows Daryl his quality, particularly compared to a guy like Shane, is when he takes the gun from Rick and shoots Dale because he realizes that Rick can't do it. And he just wordlessly takes the gun from him and says, "I'm sorry, brother," and shoots him. And it's brutal, but it's necessary.
Oh,
And
yeah.
it is stepping up for Rick at a time where Rick is really struggling, and Daryl's seen
Yeah.
that. He saw it in the barn with Randall. He sees it there in the field.
Rick already had to kill Sophia, so it's like,
Yeah,
don't make him do this
exactly.
too.
Exactly. And I just
Zombie
think that
Sophia.
shows such a shift in the relationship between them. And
Hmm.
ironically, I guess this is when Shane is about to leave the show, and it sort of
Yeah.
makes sense.
And Daryl had said in this episode something about, yeah, Dale was telling Daryl, you're important, and Rick looks to you, and he goes, Rick looks to Shane, or something like that.
Yeah.
So this is sort of him stepping into that buddy role, or starting to at least.
And I just thought it was a really nice, quiet part of this episode that was a good bit of character work, was having Daryl be a part of these scenes. Like when they're taking Randall to the barn, it's Rick, Daryl, and Shane. Like he's starting to step into these positions.
Hmm.
I find it uncomfortable still that the group, to an extent, are like, well, Daryl can beat the guy up and torture him because that's the kind of guy Daryl is. No one
I
says
know.
it, but
Send him in there.
it's implied, and I don't love that.
The writers are like, who should we have do it? Should we have Glenn?
Yeah, Glenn would be crying.
Glenn would be
Glenn
like,
would literally come
you're a
in.
good guy, right?
He's like, you can hit me if you want. um, yeah. So I loved that. I thought that was a really strong part of this episode, and one that I'd forgotten about.
Cool. I mean, I just opening up with Daryl punching or torturing Randall, punching him, digging a knife into the wound in his leg.
Awful.
I'm like, what are you what are you trying to do here? And
Mhm.
I was like, what exactly are you trying to do? Because I thought they'd already kind of decided to kill Randall. Or no, I guess Rick was going to take the night to decide.
No,
So
Richie
that
came back. Yeah.
it became clear just a little later that this is happening because Rick wanted to be able to assess the threat before he made a decision of what to do.
Hmm.
And just when Daryl's walking out of the barn afterwards, the other are asking Rick what the plan is for Randall and are you going to keep him there? And he goes, we'll know soon enough, because he knows as soon as Daryl gives him information. So the information that Daryl got was that Randall's part of a group of 30 men who are heavily armed and who will kill them and possibly rape the women first if they find them.
Hmm.
And that was enough. So it seems like I had been thinking of whether the torture was to assess if Randall's a good person, but I think they either think he's not or that it doesn't matter. And really it's just to figure out what the threat is, you know?
Yeah.
And then that, of course, reminded me of what Daryl did on the Daryl show. And later when Dale says to Daryl, torturing people, that isn't you. I'm like, it kind of is, Dale.
He's capable of it.
That's
Yeah.
so then I had a point on this, so I'm just going into it. But Randall, he is resisting telling the truth, I think, when
Hmm.
Daryl asks how many guys, and he's like, 30. And it almost seems like he just pulled that out of his ass, but Daryl
Oh,
apparently believed him.
100%. Yeah.
But Daryl believed him, and that's what he reported to Rick. But I think he's definitely just sort of been withholding, and so that's a point against him. And then he says they have weapons and stuff, heavy weapons, automatics. I'm like, why weren't you forthcoming with all that before? But it could be because he knows these guys will kill him if he gives up any information. It could just simply be
Hmm.
that, you know.
It could
But
be.
the part that disgusted me was Randall sitting there saying he's innocent. Like, these people took me in. They're not just guys. There's men and women. They're like you. I thought I'd have a better chance with them. That's totally plausible. Then he tells the story where just the men went out on this, what do you call it, scavenging or whatever, and they end up, he sees them rape these girls of a farmer or something. And that totally jives with what Tony in the bar is saying. He hasn't had a piece of ass in weeks.
Ugh.
That's his quote, not mine. That's their MO, right? And Randall says he wasn't a part of it and didn't do anything. And Daryl kicks him. And I'm like, well, if Randall did do that, would he really be telling the story? He might be that stupid. He probably is. But I think in most cases, if you did something like that and you were being tortured, you would not bring it up. So I think the only reason like he's bringing it up is because this guy is asking him for information, and it could very well be that he's just trying to tell him, okay, I'll tell you, these are the kind of guys they are. And he gets fucking kicked for it and then beaten. And you find out later, Daryl didn't get any more information out of him versus what we already heard. So he's just brutally beating Randall when we see there at the end there. And Randall's, if I was Randall and I was like, I just told him something and now I'm being beaten up, so I better not fucking tell him anything else because this is what I get for it, I mean, that just disgusted me. Daryl doesn't know for sure
No.
what kind of a person Randall is, and yet he's, for no reason that I can see, just brutally beating him. I'm like, fuck you, Daryl, right there. I mean, it's just one part of it, I can't just write off Daryl as a character, but that one scene, I felt so angry at him for that.
It's not great. It's really not great. If I was to play devil's advocate, to quote Jason, I wonder if it's the writer's attempt to show that like Daryl is so disgusted by the thought of what they did to those women that he's taking out his anger about it on Randall. But I'm inclined to lean towards what you're saying and say that it's still gross.
Yeah, no,
You
I
should.
think it is, but Daryl's presuming that Randall did take part in it, and
Well,
if
he
he knew
does.
that, if he knew, I mean, he called him cute. I don't think that has any bearing on it.
I. Uh,
If you did know that Randall did it, I would say you'd need to know 100%. But okay, just to be charitable, even if you thought it was probably true, then I could be a lot more forgiving of Daryl for that. But he doesn't know. And the way that Randall delivered that line, it was maybe a choice by the actor. He didn't say it like, oh yeah, they were cute. He was just like, cute girls, I don't.
I thought
He
the
could
way
have been just
he's
explaining why these guys did what they did or something. I
I
don't know.
thought the way he said it was quite interesting because as he says it, he's kind of searching Daryl's face a little bit, and I don't know if
I was
he's
watching
trying
for
to read.
that and I didn't see it, but you
I
could be
thought he
right.
looked like he was trying to get a read on Daryl a little bit, but I
Okay.
don't think to the extent that he's like, does this guy seem like he'd be cool with sexual assault? Because obviously not. But it is messy and it isn't the best light for Daryl to be seen in, to be honest. Like what he does here isn't wonderful,
I think it's
to say
atrocious.
the least.
Yeah, I think it's so bad.
Do you think he redeems himself later in the show?
In the show, absolutely. I mean, that's a black stain on his character for me, but I don't think about that when I think about Daryl anymore. I mean, I will now because it's fresh in my memory.
Yeah, you're
Doing
like
the
every
rewatch.
day now.
But I don't, when I see Daryl later on, I don't think about that. And I think Daryl is a hero and a really good person. So, I mean, I could just write it off as, oh yeah, this was a mischaracterization, but I don't think it is because look what we see him do in the Daryl show, and I fucking hated that too. I'm like, dude.
Yeah, we spoke about that, didn't we? We were both like,
So,
no,
yeah, but that seemed a little bit more, I don't know, almost farcical to the point. It didn't quite get me as bad as this one did for some reason, but
yeah,
it was pretty bad though.
it wasn't great. It absolutely.
I still
was
love Daryl.
Hashtag love Daryl forever.
All right, you want to do a different one?
Absolutely. So my next point is another cute one, Glenn and Herschel. I forgot
so
the
good.
watch came out so early in the season, in the show even. I loved to see. Well, I got a bit annoyed at Beth being like a child in bed. I'm like, for God's sake, you're 16, get up. But whatever, it was a sweet moment with Doodlebug. And I like that Glenn is checking in on her because that shows a level of kind of care. Because I don't know, if your new girlfriend's sister tried to die by suicide within a week of the two of you getting together, like, I mean, would you check in? I don't know. You might peace out. A nice subtle scene, Herschel asking Glenn where his family is from, because that can obviously be quite a large microaggression of, you're not really from here. What's your race? What's your background? And you can sort of see Glenn, he's heard this question before.
Ready
He's
for
like,
that, yeah.
Michigan, but Korea. And Herschel kind of surprises in a way by saying immigrants built this country, never forget that, and sort of talks about his own immigrant history, Maggie Green and the Irish side of the family. I loved his story about his wife buying the watch back after he sold it on a night of drinking. I no longer remember how that reminds him of Maggie. She's very like her mum. I couldn't deal with the line, "You'll become a father someday." I was like, oh.
He said, if you do.
I know, but he never did because of Negan.
Yeah, he sort of did.
It's so sad. Anyway,
Posthumously. Yeah,
just every time, all these scenes with Glenn, each one feels like someone is stabbing me in the heart. Anyway, he says, you think no man will ever be good enough for your girl until one is. Go now before I change my mind about you. And I just loved it. It's a lovely scene. Scott Wilson is just fantastic. And I thought they played the awkwardness and the sweetness of it just perfectly.
Yeah, it's very, very touching. And yeah, I love how like asking, where he's from and saying immigrants built this country. Never forget that our family came from Ireland. I think that's just sort of evidence for what I've been preaching lately, which is that there are plenty of things that need changing and that need to be addressed, and one of them is racism. And also that I feel like we need to be careful about not calling something racism or sexism or whatever if it kind of looks like it. To be really quick to jump on something like that is to sometimes call up a conflict that wouldn't have been there otherwise. So like, and then it weakens our position that we want these things to change. I don't want any more racism, but if you're calling things racism that aren't, then people who might be persuaded to think about it will just be like, you just say everything's racism. And so in this case, when Herschel is saying the Asian boy, I see nothing wrong with that. It's just a descriptor. Maybe if Glenn's uncomfortable with it, he could say something. But from where he's not saying anything about Glenn except I'm just figuring out a way to let you know who I'm talking about, And so in
Mm.
this case, like just the fact that he goes out of his way to build some common ground, like, yeah, we're the same. I'm an immigrant. I'm from an immigrant family. And that is just beautiful to me. So I
Yeah.
loved it.
It's a
And it
lovely
shows where
moment
his heart
between the
is,
two of them.
Yeah, yeah. And so if Glenn had been like, you're a racist, you called me an Asian boy, then this moment probably never would have happened.
They're from Michigan, you fucking racist. Like, oh.
Yeah, exactly.
I do not like you, says Herschel. Get out of my farm.
And then the watch, like that still with Maggie, and we talked about that a couple episodes ago, but in Dead City, I think she still has it.
One of the most iconic items of The Walking Dead, I think, that
Mhm.
watch.
Yeah. And Herschel's saying no man is good enough for your daughter until one is. I'm like, oh my God. And I think the thing with Glenn lately is that, or always, is he just doesn't see himself as worthy. And I think Herschel's vote of confidence here is a huge thing for him. He's finally realizing, okay, I guess I'm pretty good.
And he was so low after what happened at the bar that to see him having been seen for his worth there is, I think it's a really nice turn. That he goes from feeling like I did fuck all to like, oh, someone saw me and they see that I'm a good person and I'm good enough for Maggie. I think that's just really lovely.
Yes, it's really nice.
Yeah.
Okay, so my next one is the Randall dilemma. I guess it's kind of the biggest point. So we already kind of covered it, but with Dale, like he's got sort of, you could say high ideals, but I don't want it to sound dismissive, like, oh, you and your ideals, but it's about whether they become, but they lose their humanity. That life becomes, like he said, Darwinian, kill or be killed, shoot first, think later, kill anything that seems like a threat, or to try to keep our humanity and be civil, which some people might think is weak and a sure way to get killed. But it's always my opinion that you need to come at things smartly, but not viciously like that, because there's strength in numbers and also in the kinds of things that he's talking about, fighting with words and creating rules that we live by and talking things over, because that's what society is built on. And the reason society was built in the first place is because before that it was just kill or be killed, and we were all hunters and gatherers, and there were no organization to anything, and there was no development of civilization, there were no arts, it was just kill or be killed. And the only way to have good things is when we all work together. And so anyway, so the information that Daryl got was, like I said, Randall's people are dangerous and they might kill us. And Rick
30 men with heavy artillery not looking to make friends.
Killing and raping. And Rick decides that from that Randall's a threat and they need to kill him. No consideration for whether he was a bad guy himself, or if he was loyal to their group, or if he was just with them because their safety in numbers. And Dale says there's got to be a process, and he's automatically guilty by association and sentenced to death. And I'm like, that's what was in my mind. And then, and I feel like it's kind of messed up that there's only one guy who thinks it's even worthwhile to talk about that.
Right.
Then he says the world we know is gone, but keeping our humanity, that's a choice. And I think that sounds kind of wishy-washy to some, but I think he's right. And that, as I said before, this is the main overarching theme of The Walking Dead as a show, where in the end they decide to do things like jail Negan, and instead of killing him, and be, less just murdery basically in general. And so I had approached this whole thing just trying to figure out myself what to do as the jury being out on Randall at this point. But even, let's say the jury is in, that Daryl's a good judge of character, he knows Randall's a bad guy, then I'm like, well, what about the possibility of redemption? I'd thought they didn't keep him around because they didn't have a secure place to hold him, but their argument for not keeping him around is that he'd be another mouth to feed. But he's a person like anybody, and as Carl says years later, every life is worth something.
I got quite pissed off at Laurie in that scene because, Rick makes this big deal of saying, like, I know you're against the death penalty, blah, blah, blah. And then someone, they're suggesting these things, and she just kind of goes, I wouldn't feel safe unless he was locked up. And I'm like, Laurie, you're not helping. You're not helping. Like, yeah, I don't know. That annoyed me.
And even for the sake of argument, he's a bad guy, let's say. He can't be redeemed. It's just not an option. If he gets out, he's going to go to his people and they'll come back and kill everyone. If you know that's the likely outcome, then I guess killing him is the right thing. It's just like with Otis. It's either if it's either we die or Randall dies, then Randall clearly has to die if you know that for sure. Or you risk or you leave the farm. But I think, like I said at the top, they should at least spend some time with him first and feel out the situation. He brings the saviors in later.
I mean, he's clearly not the sharpest tool in the shed. That's the one thing I think we can say about Randall is he is not the smartest tool in the shed.
Out. He's just freaking out and losing his shit.
Yeah, like he's not. He's hardly a criminal mastermind, is he? Like, yeah.
Yeah, no. He's not smart. He says dumb things for sure. Just saying he knew Maggie was his death sentence.
He cracked me up when he said to Carl, he's like, oh, your dad's the sheriff. I like him. I'm like, Randall, go for a believable lie. You obviously don't like him. Like...
Meanwhile, Carl's just staring at him like he's possessed by the devil or something.
Like, oh,
God. And then I just thought killing Randall, because, as we know, Shane kills him next week. Or if they would have even killed him this night, it ended up being nothing because, like, the next day, the zombies come and drive everyone off the farm anyway, so they have nothing to protect from Randall's people anymore.
Well, if we go down that road, though, the zombies come because of the gunshot of Carl shooting Shane, which comes because Shane and Rick have a confrontation about Randall. So if Shane hadn't killed Randall, the farm might never have been run over.
Oh, interesting.
I might eat my words when I rewatch the episode and realize I remembered it wrong.
I totally forgot. So a year after this episode aired or so, I interviewed Angela Kang and I asked her about it. So I have a couple of just two clips, one from Angela Kang, one from Glenn Mazzara. So here's Angela Kang talking about it.
One episode in particular that you wrote, Judge, Jury, Executioner from season 2, which is the one where they were deciding whether or not to kill Randall.
Right.
I was heartbroken because I really was on Dale's side. And nobody else was, and not even Glenn. I was like, oh, God. And so I wonder if you, I'm just curious to know if you personally came down on either one of the sides in that debate.
I think you mean whether or not they should have killed him or not?
Yeah. If you don't want to say, it's okay.
I don't mind saying, actually. I don't know if I should or not, but I probably, personally am more of Dale's point of view.
Wow.
That maybe there's, that you want to try to hold on to some humanity and some order, and that, me as a person, I'm a little wary of, vigilante justice, but me as, a writer of the characters, sometimes that is the right point of view of the character,
Yeah. It's really interesting to hear you say that, because after I watched that episode, I was so mad at everybody for turning on Dale. And I'm like, who wrote that?
That's it. So I just thought that was interesting that she took that view. But in my memory, I had asked her, were Randall's people really bad? And then I was like, oh, I listened back. No, I didn't ask you that. I asked Glenn Mazzara that in another interview, and that's much shorter, but I'm going to play that. He was a showrunner at the time. So here that is.
I've always been curious, and I know you probably aren't going to answer this, but I want to know if Randall's group was actually evil, and would they have overrun the farm and killed everybody?
The way we talked about it was the Randall's group was mostly men, and they certainly would have been a threat. Yeah.
Okay.
I'll answer that. Yeah.
But what I wish I would have asked, if I could go back in time, is what about Randall himself? I didn't think to ask that.
Yeah, we asked.
Idiots.
Well,
God.
here's the thing. So, right, okay. You said something earlier that I thought was interesting about Randall, whether he's a good or bad person. And I think that on the page, that matters a bit. But I think what they're assessing him as, and what you kind of have to think about, and again, just to absolute avoidance of doubt, I am not pro death penalty, and I'm uncomfortable with the idea of people killing someone like Randall. I think what the group
Even
are
if he is
having to
bad.
come up against, yeah, I think what the people in the group are coming up against, though, is not just whether Randall is good or bad. They're not. That's in a way irrelevant. What they're assessing is he a threat? If he goes back to his group, will he tell them where we are and what are his group like? So in a way, it doesn't matter whether or not Randall is good or bad. What matters is the connection to that larger group and how bad they are. It may be that Randall didn't do any of those things, but if there is a chance that he's going to go back and spill where they are, that has to take precedence over whether or not he's a good or bad person.
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of what I was just saying. Like, if it's very likely that he's going to get away and go to them and then they're going to come back and kill everybody, that's kind of like with Otis and Shane, where Shane kind of had to do what he did or else they both would have died. And so then I think, yes, but I just don't see it as like, at the very least, they could spend some more time with him and see if he's the kind of guy they could integrate into their group or something. Or just like Andrea, I had forgotten, she actually came down on Dale's side at the end. Yeah, we should take some more time. Just take some more time to think about it. Like they said, maybe we could drive him out even further. Oh, well, he almost got killed last time. Bullshit. There's nobody around anywhere.
Laurie is a pain in the ass in this episode. Yeah. I'm sorry, but she is. She's like,
it's just a dumb excuse. The writers couldn't think of a better excuse, I feel like, because you could drive him out further. But maybe
also someone else could drive him. Like, I don't. Yeah, I find that really annoying.
Have Laurie drive him. That'll take care of it.
That would be amazing. I mean, get him to drive himself. Just tape him to the fucking seat again and be like, drive as far as you want,
Tesla.
Mate. Put him in a Tesla.
And punch in like California.
Bye, Randall. Sweet car, man. Thanks. Like, okay, bye.
No, I mean, you got to put the self-driving on and chain it and tie him up in there.
Oh, that's incredible. We should do that. That would be hilarious. Oh man. Well, my thoughts about this are kind of more about democracy and Dale. One of the things I really liked about this episode was, and in a way it's quite fitting for a final episode, is that Dale gets a scene with everyone, almost like he gets to go around the group and sort of talk to people.
Didn't bother with Glenn, which is kind of why it was a shock when Glenn.
I know.
He just presumed.
Oh boy, that broke my heart, and Glenn never really gets to sort of make that right with him, and that really, oh bless him. So he first of all chases after Rick and argues for process. And he gets in Rick's head by saying, "Think about your son." And I loved that in the background there was like a thunderstorm brewing. I was like, ooh. He has a scene with Andrea that's fascinating, where you see, for the first time in a while, Andrea's loyalty to Dale come out a little bit. And she even manages to communicate that to Shane slightly, someone who she's usually trying to impress / flirt with. She does kind of not quite stick up for Dale. I wouldn't go as far as that, but she does say to Shane that she wouldn't let him do X, Y, and Z, and that she would keep watch.
And she's even in there saying, "Get off of him," when Shane bursts in and holds the gun up to his face.
What I liked about that is I always remembered Andrea and Shane as being quite a one-sided thing, where Andrea just basically wanted to shag Shane. But in this, I think it does bother Shane that she is loyal to Dale. I think there is part of him that enjoys her affection. And I don't know, again, looking at this scene, I'm like, if Shane had lived, I could really have seen the two of them being a couple successfully.
I feel like, though it is still lopsided, but I agree with you.
It's lopsided, but not as much as I recalled it being. We had confirmation again that Andrea was a civil rights lawyer. And that is quite alarming that a civil rights lawyer would turn so quickly to this idea.
It is, but I still believe it though. I know
Yeah, oh, absolutely.
a social worker who's just a real piece of shit. Not love to social workers out there. I'm not saying anything like that, but it just surprised me. Like, oh my God, you don't care about anybody.
No, I mean, and some things harden you, don't you? If you're a lawyer or whatever, it can make you feel really like, or a doctor or something. You become numb to certain things. But I thought it was interesting that it affected Andrea when he said, "The world we know is gone. Keeping our humanity is a choice," and she does agree to help him. She says, "Not because I think you're right, but I think she might be lying because I think she does think he's right deep down because we see her agree with him in the end." We get an absolute gem of the scene with Dale and Herschel. We get so little time between Scott Wilson and Jeffrey DeMunn, and it's just a nice scene with the two of them. Herschel saying, "I don't want to know, I want away from my girls, I don't care how." Herschel's really turning the other cheek now after his kind of, I don't know, something has been humbled in Herschel that means he's not making big judgments in the way that he was, keeping people in the barn.
Yeah.
It's just nice to also see Herschel do some farming. I don't know, I was just like, oh, the farm is still operating, that's cool. The Dale and Shane scene is so good. What's up, Dale? He's so annoyed already. Dale's turned up and he's like, all right, what the fuck do you want now?
I mean, says something for Dale that he showed up knowing how dangerous Shane is.
Yeah.
Pretty much threatened his life. And yet he's there sticking his chest out, he's scared, but he's like saying what he's got to say. Dale.
It's a weirdly sweet scene between the two of them. Like Shane kind of steps up to it a little bit, which I liked. Obviously the third person in that scene is the Hyundai, which is behind Shane for the whole scene and very clean. But they reach this kind of uneasy understanding. And Shane does kind of do a bit of dick swinging by saying Dale will be complicit if Randall kills someone. But there is this weird sort of masculine energy, game recognizes game, that I won't pretend to understand, but I enjoyed watching.
Oh, come on. You've done that with all your girlfriends.
Oh yeah, absolutely. regularly. That's how we start most of our conversations.
I'm just kidding. Yeah. Like you said that Shane told Dale, you'll be complicit if he does anything. And that would be what would be on my mind, because I would be the Dale. I would be on Dale's side, and I would also be thinking, fuck, you better not do anything.
Yeah. We were rooting for you. We were all rooting for you. Like, don't be a dick.
I mean, if Randall brought his people back or Randall killed somebody or something, I'd just be like, I fucking A.
I would just be Randall. Like, well, what can I say? We don't know everything. I made a boo-boo. It's all good. And everyone's like, get out. Whoops, my bad.
But Shane said, if everyone agrees with you, or if enough people, then I won't stand in the way. I'm like, really? Bullshit. Because just a few minutes ago, you were talking with Andrea about like staging a coup.
A full-on coup. Like,
so I thought it was kind of cool of Shane to say that, but I'm like, what are you talking about?
It's also duplicitous as fuck, though, isn't it? Like, it is that thing where you're like, no.
He just knows that's not going to happen anyway, I think.
Right. And then we have the courthouse in the living room, which I think is really interesting. Glenn lets Dale down, and then Dale asks Maggie, who's clearly uncomfortable, and Maggie suggests he can continue keeping him prisoner. I loved the way Andrew Lincoln delivered the line. I don't think any of us should be walking around with this guy like this. There's just something about the way he like fucking hates Randall so much, but in this way that like he's more just annoying than actually a threat, that I found very interesting.
He's just not cool. He's not cool.
Yeah, he's just like, oh, no one's walking around with this loser, and everyone's like, yeah, you're right, Rick, that wouldn't be cool.
Kill him.
Laurie wouldn't feel safe. What the fuck ever. That annoyed me to high heaven. I love that Patricia's like, how do we do it? Like Patricia's like low-key, like, ooh, how will we murder him? It fascinated me that Carol is so innocent here. Like, she really struggles with it. She's like, I didn't ask for this responsibility. Decide what you're going to decide. I don't want any part of it. And I'm like, oh, imagine if this was season 3 or season 4. Carol would be out there with the shotgun. Like, I've dealt with it. Don't you worry. Herschel says nothing. A lot of people don't say anything in this scene.
T-Dog doesn't say anything hardly the whole episode, which is unfortunate in my opinion.
Dale appeals to their sense. He gets very upset. He says this new world is ugly. Andrea agrees with him. Jeffrey DeMunt, amazing performance, cries, I won't be a party to it, tells Daryl he's right, this group is broken, and then he leaves, and that is the last.
Right.
That is the last they hear from him until they don't hear from him anymore at all. Yeah. And Andrea is happy when she realizes the execution hasn't happened and goes to find him to tell him, and he never finds out. Although I guess he didn't hear the gun, so maybe he knows, but yeah, he doesn't know that they changed their mind. Yeah.
They cut it out, but Glenn was like, well, hey, at least we didn't kill Randall.
Yeah. Dale, just before you go, we didn't kill him.
You made an
Carl's
impact.
a psycho.
That is so awful to joke about. I'm sorry, everyone. I apologize.
But I mean, if you've been affected by cattle evisceration, maybe seek therapeutic help and don't listen to this podcast. Call your therapist. So it's a great final episode for Jeffrey DeMunn. Sad to see him go. I remember when I was watching it the first time round thinking, this seems like a dumb death.
Yeah, kind of. Yeah. One zombie. Like there are hardly any
One
zombies.
zombie in a field, staring at some entrails. You know, I read an interesting fact on IMDb. Well, I've got more of them, but this was a really interesting one. It was originally not supposed to be a cow. It was supposed to be Jimmy. But apparently they changed their minds because they didn't want to detract from the impact of Dale's death. So Jimmy got a stay of execution.
I think they did the right thing.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah. And then Jimmy gets it in the finale. I remember hearing him scream.
Bye, Jimmy. Forever.
All right. I'm going to talk about Carl.
Talking about social services.
The first things, of course, you think about is just how creepy and psycho he comes off, staring down at Randall like a antichrist.
Oh my God.
Preoccupied with how Rick is going to kill Randall. Are you going to hang him in the barn? He doesn't seem worried at all, just curious. He kind of stares at the dead squirrels hanging by Daryl's motorcycle a couple seconds too long. And then takes his gun. And then he's staring at that zombie stuck in the mud and throwing rocks at it.
Just wild.
And then, then he sees Rick about to execute Randall and he says, "Do it, Dad.
Do it, Dad. Oh,
do it." So, I just thinking about it more, I felt really bad for poor Carl because he's exposed to all this death and viciousness, and it's really kind of fascinating in a sad way to show how this kind of thing might impact a little kid. I think about kids in war zones, places in the world right now who have it so not a kid's life, violence, starvation, all kinds of things. And they're going to and they have to figure out how to handle all of this. And we know,
and he's on his own. He has his friend is dead. The one kid that was there with him is gone. And it's interesting because in the comics, both Sophia and Carl last way longer. Their relationship is very interesting. It's great. It's sad. He is on his own.
It's a really good relationship. So little kids, they want to be grown up, and I have a 7-year-old right now, and he's obsessed with his muscles. He's always asking me, "Am I strong?" And he only will eat food that's healthy. So he always is asking me if something's healthy. And he's like, "Is bacon healthy?" And I'm like, I want him to eat it. So I'm like, "Oh, it's kind of got protein." Like, no, it's making me feel like a bad father. I have to say no a lot of times. But anyway, they want to grow up and emulate adults. And, they want to be an adult faster than they don't realize, you should enjoy being a kid. And of course, in this kind of situation, like you said, there's no enjoyment. But anyway, so they're modeling what the adults do. And in this show, the adults are getting pretty cutthroat. They're modeling being killers in the name of security. And so that's why Carl's kind of obsessed with, I want to be a grown up. I want to help with the security of this place. I want to be like my dad, who will kill someone to keep us safe. And that's why he takes the gun. Protect. And so that's why he's looking at this zombie, and is like, I'm going to kill the zombie so I can be like my dad, you know, and like Shane, who's like a father figure to him. And so and it's, you know, you do need to kill Zeds, obviously. I'm not saying no to that at all. But in a sense, Dale died because Carl was emulating the adults, killing in the name of security. And Carl wouldn't have been out there doing that if not for exposure to most everyone deciding to kill Randall. So in this roundabout way, Dale died because of the attitude he's arguing against. So that's kind of how a little bit of a new insight I saw. Like before, it seemed so random that Carl like caused this zombie to get out of the mud, and then that zombie ended up killing Dale. But I kind of think the point is that Carl's exposure to these attitudes that Dale was fighting against is what got Dale killed. You know, it's kind of interesting.
I've always hated that zombie is the one that bit Dale, because like I've struggled a lot in my life with feeling responsible for things, sometimes to like a mentally unwell stage, and the thought of something you did leading to the death of another person like makes me sick to my core. And I'm not saying that like I'm so unusual. Imagine feeling that. I'm so quirky. Like most people probably feel that.
But I don't think people think about it that much though.
Oh, I like when I was younger and I struggled a lot with obsessive thoughts, this would be something that would like eat away at me. And I've always felt so sorry for Carl. I'm just like, to me, this is one of the points where Carl stops being a kid. And it makes me so sad that that's taken away from him. Because
he's looking at it, Dale, when Dale's dying, and he sees the zombie and he knows, oh, it's my fault. But I can't remember if there were any ramifications, because they still keep on going with the story of Carl being kind of a little psycho for a while because he shot that kid in season 3. So I don't remember what impact this had on him, if any, aside from that moment.
Yeah, it makes me really. Yeah, it makes me really sad for him.
Yeah.
Just really sad for him. I'm glad he turns out okay in his life.
Me too.
But
very
it's
much
just so sad. So sad.
Mm-hmm.
I have some Carl points as well, but I'll let you finish up.
I'm done.
You're done? I'm done. Carl is a psycho, the end. No. He is fascinated by Randall, and it's all because they keep referring to him as a kid. And I think oh my God, I've just realized, oh Jesus, he probably wants a friend, and that's why he's probably interested if this person's actually a kid or not.
No,
or if a kid can be bad, or because he'll be not like I want to go and be friends with the prisoner, but the thought of another child.
I don't think he's looking at him as a possible connection, though. I think he's looking at him as a threat.
I think he's looking at him as a threat, but I think he's also fascinated by the fact that it could be a child. It could be someone his age who is a threat.
Then again, too, it looked like maybe if Shane hadn't shown up, maybe Carl was considering letting him go. Maybe. I don't know.
Well, Randall was manipulating him. Like, Shane's not wrong as well. That's the thing. Is Shane's like, men like that will manipulate you. They will make you think.
Well, how can you blame Randall? He's about to be killed.
Yeah, exactly. And he makes a good point to Shane. Shane makes a good point to Carl about, you let your guard down out here, people die. Like, you've got to keep your guard up at all times.
That is true. I will agree with that 100%.
I did also love that Carl's biggest fear is that Shane will tell his parents. He's like, don't tell my mom and dad. And I'm like, yeah, they're not really paying attention. It's fine. Randall talking to Carl is, that's a sweet hat. Like, oh, Randall, you idiot. I don't really have much to add apart from the scene with Carol and Carl. Was quite an interesting one. Carl, oh, fuck me. Carl Grimes is angry at Carol Pelletier. The Scottish accent isn't helping here, because she is trying to comfort him about Sophia and say, she's in heaven now. I kind of side with Carl a little bit here, because I sort of feel like you have a right to grieve how you want, and it's not necessarily cool to tell someone like, it's fine, they're in heaven, if that's not necessarily what that person believes. However, Carol did just lose her daughter and is grieving, and it's probably not a good excuse to be a little dickhead to her. So he says, if you believe it, you're an idiot. And Carol is raging. And my note just says, that fuck it's season 2 and not season 5. Otherwise, Carl would probably be dead by now. So Rick goes to talk to him. Carol is furious at Laurie. She says, everyone avoids me or treats me like I'm crazy. I've lost my daughter. I didn't lose my mind. And I thought that was a really interesting insight into how we deal with grief and how we don't know how to talk to people who have suffered great loss. Carl just wants to ask about Randall when Rick is giving him shit and telling him off. And Rick says, don't talk, think. And there's this sense that all the adults are kind of exasperated with Carl, which leads to him running off into the woods and leading to all the things that happen in this episode, like encouraging his dad to shoot Carl, taunting that walker, and which leads to Dale's death.
He didn't encourage his dad to shoot Carl.
No, the other way. Oh, for fuck's sake. Carl encouraging his dad to shoot Randall. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it makes me sad for Carl this episode. I do feel for him. I think it's a lot for a kid.
But it's also fun to just be like, what a little psycho.
Oh, yeah. And I did laugh because in the Walking Dead bad lip sync, this is one of the scenes from it. And
that's all I think about. Here, I'll play it. I only have a little snippet, but it's when Carl said, heaven is just another lie, and if you believe it, you're an idiot.
Yeah.
And Carol says, you need to control that boy. And Rick says, Carl, what happened? He's disrespectful. So I just hear, when I see that, I just hear this.
Dreet.
Uh-oh. What happened?
He said, Dreet, and I'm about to freak out.
Treat.
It's literally in my notes. I just treat.
If you guys have still not seen that, you gotta watch it. It'll put a smile on your face.
It's amazing.
I'll make a note to.
I'm about to freak out.
But so I think I don't remember for sure, but I think I was annoyed with Carol this episode the first time.
Yeah.
Because she's just yelling at Rick about her kid. And,
that boy needs to be controlled. And it's like, fuck me, we're about to kill a guy or we're talking about manners. Like, sure. Okay.
I think, but now, I see her as, like you said, she's grieving and she's just had a fucking hard life and a hard time, especially lately with the world ending and everything. And so she says, you need to control your son. I think in particular, that could be a projection because she feels like she didn't keep track of Sophia well enough.
Yeah.
Or maybe just a direct resentment of Rick for not having kept track of Sophia. You need to do a better job with kids, goddamn you.
Fuck's sake, Rick. Like, okay.
And then later I'm tired of the fighting. I didn't ask for any of this and I don't want to have to decide. And I can totally identify with that. Like there's decisions being made in the world right now that I wouldn't want to have to make. Some of them I would like to make, but some of them I'm like, oh shit, I don't know what to do. So I can identify, and she's not her best self, but she's grieving, and also she's starting to assert herself in a way that she hadn't before, she just by saying, hey, she's been kind of a meek flower before this. Yeah. And now I think this is the early stages of what's going to become her great strength later on.
You see her in the background, just aiming a gun at Carl going, pew, pew, pew.
See those flowers over there, Carl?
Yes, see them, Carl?
So I'll talk about Dale dying. Interesting to have an old episode where there's just one guy who doesn't want to kill someone and it's out of morality, and then he ends up dying at the end. And it was like Walking Dead was saying, you're not built for this world, Dale. And I was thinking this episode is him being the odd man out, and I wonder if Jeffrey DeMunn felt that way too because he left the show because Frank Darabont got fired. And the other two, let's see, Melissa McBride and Laurie Holden were also Darabont people. So I'm surprised you didn't mention them when Bernthal said who stood up for them.
Well, apparently it was a whole thing. Listen to the episode; it's really interesting.
Okay.
Apparently there was talk about like we'll do a letter, we'll let them know we're pissed off, but then apparently not everyone stood up to the plate for that. And it's because Sarah Wayne Callies is even like, and sometimes I regret it because that would have been a good paycheck to have. But I'm also like, didn't you read the comics? But it's a really definitely worth a listen. But you get the sense that they felt at least it was the three of them trying to take action and nobody else kind of standing up in the same way. So make of that what you will. Yeah.
Well, I think it all turned out for the best, honestly.
I think so.
I don't
Rochelle.
I don't like Darabont as much as everyone else. I do. I mean, they're such great. He started the show off so great, but season 2 was just It drags.
It did.
There's good moments, but when Glenn Mazzara's in, and I feel like the second half is stronger, much stronger.
Mm-hmm.
Aside from the episode where Sophia came out of the barn, which was also very strong. So anyway, Dale says, no, I can't already.
Treat.
Dale says, Dreet. I mean, I'm just proud of Dale for standing up for his point so strongly here and being so passionate about it. I very much identify with him here. So then he has his gruesome death, which is so zombie movie gross. This Zed ripping right through his chest. And
oh, I'd forgotten he isn't even fucking bitten. He is like ripped apart. I don't know if we ever see, apart from maybe Noah, this might be the last time we see, well, yeah. Oh,
probably
awful.
But yeah, it's gross.
There's probably, but it's one that sticks out.
Such a good one. So then, yeah, you mentioned like Daryl stepping in to take care of Dale when Rick was struggling with it. And I think that's compassionate. That's a compassionate move on Daryl's part, both for Rick and for Dale too. So kind of help make up a little bit for all that torture stuff.
A little bit.
And then just the last thing I want to say about this is, so when I went to film on the show, they were still airing earlier episodes of season 2. So that's when I learned that Sophia came out of the barn, because that episode hadn't been out yet. I already mentioned that. And I was filming the finale, but I also noticed that John Bernthal wasn't around and that Dale wasn't around. Jeffrey DeMunn. And I resisted asking anybody why, because I'd already been spoiled on Sophia. So I'm like, I'm just going to keep my head down and try not to learn anything else. And I didn't find out exactly what happened to Dale, but I knew something happened because he wasn't on vacation.
Aww.
So then it was confirmed.
Oh, bless. Aw, that sucks. I'm sorry.
Whatever.
You got to be on the show though.
Yeah,
so like, yeah, worth it.
All right. That's all the points I have except for notes.
I had a brief one about Rick and Laurie. It's just basically that Laurie's not great in this episode. She does a lot of like, oh, at least you and Shane aren't fighting if you think it's best. And I don't know, she doesn't do much when Rick's saying stuff like, it has to be me, I brought him back here, this is my call.
See, it's like, she's totally continue on from last week where she's like, oh, it's the women's job to support the man and serve and obey. And, and Rick's like, I want to know your opinion here. And no, whatever, honey.
It bothered me. It bothered me, especially when you have that backdrop of the two of them, like her feeling like they don't really fight and things like that. I'm like, yeah. That's really all I had. I thought it was interesting at the end when he comes back from not having shot Randall and they have a kind of sweet moment where they sort of hug. I think this might be one of their last kind of intimate moments. And it was, I've just written as well, Rick tells Laurie Carl's a psycho. He wanted to watch. And I was like, well, that's going to be some awkward parenting conversations. So
I can't remember. Oh, I was